In 1998, there was a bizarre sci-fi PC-only Queen game that controls like Resident Evil and has adventure game puzzles like Myst, and it's kind of hard to figure out why this even exists, especially because it has no immediate connection to Queen by just looking at it, but there might be some absolute Queen fanatics that are picking up on a reference here and there. You're not a true Queen fan unless you recognize that this clock can be seen in the Radio Gaga music video, or this juggling clown is from the Innuendo album art, or this character named the Baroness was designed off the lyrics to the song Killer Queen, apparently. Now, I'm only a Queen fan in passing, so a lot of this stuff flew right over my head, but it seems like there are obscure nods strung throughout for those that live and breathe Queen. The soundtrack, though, is an excellent collection of Queen remixes by an artist named Josh McRae, who's been working with Queen in the studio since 1992. There's a lot of instrumental versions of songs to serve as background music, and sadly I can't play any of them for you, but I will link some of the best tracks in the description. The Show Must Go On gets a particularly good mix, and because of the overall sparing use of vocals, when Freddie's singing does occasionally come on, it really hits. But still, why this game of all games? Like, it just seems so random to me that this eerie 90s sci-fi horror game called Queen the Eye, that's I with a capital Y, is indeed a Queen game, but you can piece together a few things that led to this. Queen do have something of a track record with science fiction, doing the soundtrack for Flash Gordon and making the futuristic Orwellian We Will Rock You musical after this game in 2002. Similar games like Alone in the Dark and Myst were big sellers in the early 90s, which would have helped greenlight this, and when CD-ROMs came around, a lot of artists put together what were often called interactive CDs to accompany their albums. Like David Bowie, Prince, and Mike Oldfield all made one. It was sort of a fleeting trend of the early 90s. Queen took the concept a step further and made this full video game out of it, a video game that started development in around 1994 when the trend was at its peak, but it took 4 years to develop the thing, an unusually long time back then, and Electronic Arts ended up quietly releasing it with little advertising in 1998 to pretty negative reviews. A development house named Destination Design was formed to create the game, who grew from 4 employees to begin with to 22 during development, and then they shut down afterwards as the game wasn't a success. It's clear this wasn't a smooth project to put together. And though it's fascinating in a lot of ways, it's absolutely not smooth to play either. The opening level is incredibly unwelcoming, not only thanks to its barren grey warehouse feel, but you're only given a few seconds to grapple with the clunky tank controls before you're being wailed on by a couple of enemies. You have to really wheel your character around to aim attacks perfectly to land hits, all the while enemies seem to attack faster and more accurately than you possibly can. It's screaming for a lock-on system. There are weapons to alleviate the pain, including firearms, but they're few and far between, and ammo is hard to come by. In the first level, a rocket launcher is particularly handy because you can one-shot enemies with it, but if you do, you won't be able to beat the level because you need to take out some turrets at the end using the rocket launcher, which you won't know at the start, and the level takes a couple of hours to beat. It gives you this excellent weapon which makes the combat more palatable, but if you use it, you've ruined the game for yourself. Also, if you lose too much health, you might need to restart the level at some point too, because there aren't a lot of health packs and taking damage is often unavoidable. Some platforming breaks up the combat, but like the combat, it often requires pixel-perfect precision while you're grappling with a bad camera that transitions between screens too often, bad controls, and slow animations. This first level has 2 bridge gaps, one of which you can make and the other you can't, but they're so similar in size and you need to be so precise to jump the gap that you can make that you'll inevitably try to jump the gap that you can't make a whole bunch of different times before giving up. At least you can save anywhere. Most of the time though, you'll be solving adventure game puzzles by using the right items with the right things, and this game commits every adventure game sin in the book. It expects you to randomly try using items with random things, it throws in a bunch of literally useless items to waste your time, you're expected to take mental notes on what seem like completely mundane things. It's incredibly tedious and confusing, and Worst of all, the items that you can pick up blend in way too much with the environment and can sometimes be only seen from specific camera angles. I spent an eternity just circling around this room looking for a film reel, only to realize that my eyes kept glazing over it because it can only be seen at the edge of the screen from this one specific camera angle. That's it down there. You'll also get cheaply killed and thrown back to the menu all the time. Like, sometimes you'll use the wrong item and the game will kill you. You'll constantly be falling into instant death pits. At one point you beat a tough boss battle and then the entire room just electrifies and kills you. If you didn't save in between the boss dying and the room electrifying, bad luck, you're doing the entire boss again. There's no checkpoints. After the boss, the game directs you towards an item to pick up, so you think that you should do that to avoid dying, but if you do that, you'll die, so you actually have to run across the room and stand on something in the opposite corner and just wait an uncomfortably long amount of time for the electricity to stop. A long enough amount of time that you'll question if it will. The short of it is, this game is a nightmare to play, especially without a walkthrough by your side. I actually found it best to use save games that I found online as checkpoints, just because saving every 2 seconds was exhausting, and I didn't want to unknowingly ruin my chances at beating a level because I used a rocket launcher or something. It's very silly. I feel like I'm one of the only people who's played this game that's actually finished it, and I cheated. But strewn throughout are these nuggets of imagery and inventiveness that suggest that there was a lot of energy put into the creative side of this. Like, there's a definite creepy 90s mystique to the whole thing. The way the bizarre cast of characters animate and talk is pretty unsettling, each of which are very distinctive, and the game revels in these weird pre-rendered death clips.
Mortal, twice you have come between me and what's mine. It's time that your soul was taught real terror. Ha 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 ha.
A few months before this game came out, an art book for the game came out, which has a lot of insight into the game's development and lore, and reading this after finishing the game is when I realized I really wanted to make this video, because it's fascinating to compare what the developers wanted this game to be against what it actually is. Like, for example, one of the first pages details how this world has been crushed by global recession, and what's described as a self-replicating cybernetic demigod named the Eye has oppressed humankind using the network, a matrix-like extension of the Eye which blurs the physical and computer-generated world to suffocate, stifle, and suppress freedom, spirit, and creative thought among the people. And that's a fun setup for a dystopian world. Like, just reading about it has you wanting to know more about how it all works, but the game is so bare bones that it's hard to even piece together the basics. Like, the short, jarringly edited cutscenes just fly by with overly compressed voicing, and I found myself wanting to at least read something in the game which explained what was going on, but there was nothing to read. You play as a guy named Dubrok, who accidentally found a musical archive which awakened him to the cruel and brutal regime of the Eye, which again isn't really clear in the game, and as a punishment he's tortured and thrown into the arena, the first level, which is a Running Man style gladiator maze that he inevitably escapes from. The 4 following levels, each of which are on their own individual CD with 5 CDs total, are all creepy, chaotic worlds where Dubrok must find certain keys in order to eventually take down the Eye, and the entire time you'll be wondering what's going on without ever really getting any answers. A lot of strange characters cryptically ramble and yell, half the time asking you to do something for them, with the exception being Kazan, who is the only character that really drops hints about what's actually going on.
We're in a parallel universe, Dubrok.
This level is called the Innuendo Domain, and sadly it's a lot more PG than it sounds. The book describes it as a sprawling Victorian circus with lights and glowing colours of the stands creeping across the twilight and a tenuous mist floating above the ground. Despite this flowery language, in reality it's a small goofy circle of tents with a handful of corny and creepy characters, but once you go inside the main tent it feels a lot more inspired, being an impossible outdoor setting with crop circles and strange twisted carnival characters and a large metallic dome in the middle. It's enough to draw your attention and entice you to dig around and explore what this is all about, but you have to slog through the more generic circus area first. And it's these glimpses of thoughtfulness and weirdness that stuck out to me in Queen the Eye. Another level is set in an abandoned theatre. Very original, but then you bump into this creepy guy backstage who endlessly wails on about this world being ruled by a Mistopheles character, and there's a crying woman who's been cut in half, and you get attacked by a giant snake man, literally named Snake Man. You watch a bit of a Queen music video, and you summon all these strange ghost people to play some Queen music to save this alternate universe from Mistopheles, who himself is horrifying. All of this is as disjointed and random as it sounds, but it's so weird and out there that while playing, I couldn't help but wonder what the purpose of all this was. Like, they didn't thoughtlessly phone in a cheap and easy, obvious Queen game, whatever that is, and call it a day. Instead, it had to be the case that genuine consideration went into this, even if it came together so poorly that you can't really tell what they were trying to do half the time. So it's fascinating and fun to see that the book confirms that thought and actually outlines what they were trying to make with paragraphs of detail on each location and character. But it's the development stuff in the book that really highlights why this game is the way it is. The book opens with a charmingly 90s page about how CD-ROMs are revolutionizing the entertainment world. Games are becoming an art form. Queen are the first band to realize this. Using the latest technology, Queen and their developers, Destination Design, have modeled what will be the blueprint for other games to follow. Queen the Eye, the first truly artistic game. It goes beyond any interactive music CD, beyond any cutting-edge console, beyond any classic game of the last 5 years. It is more interactive epic than game. Isn't that a big call? Putting aside the self-aggrandizing, if you keep in mind that they were trying to make a revolutionary game, it puts in perspective how Queen the Eye was way too overambitious. Like, it might not seem like a particularly ambitious game, but it is, just in ways you wouldn't expect. Like, for example, because they were trying to push the envelope, this game has a ton of motion capture, which was pretty unusual back in 1998. The combat is surprisingly complex in that it has 4 inputs like a fighting game, 2 punches and 2 kicks, and like a fighting game, you can combo them together and combo them with sprinting to do different moves, all of which are really well animated for the time, thanks to the motion capture. It's unfortunate then that the best strategy is just spamming the attack with the quickest animation, which was particularly amusing to do against the final boss, but still. Motion capture is described in the normally very optimistic book as a tortuous process, and it details how it took hours, days, and months of painstakingly matching up mocap dots and testing, correcting, and retesting each animation. They even shipped off all of the mocap data to a medical research company in France for processing, which took a whopping 5 months. Mocap really was in its early stages. Where I believe that Queen the Eye is genuinely groundbreaking is with its facial mocap. Like, it's a hard thing to research, but I believe that this is the first game ever to use facial mocap on real-time 3D rendered characters. This might not look like much, but when you consider how rare it was to see facial animation at all with real-time polygonal characters in the 90s, it's amazing to see mocapped facial animation. It's also a fairly early game to use CD quality Red Book audio for the soundtrack while you're playing, and because the soundtrack is so high quality and because there's about 30 minutes of it on each disc, it takes up about 300 megabytes of data on each disc, leaving about 350 to 400 megabytes left for the rest of the game. The background images ended up needing to be compressed just to fit on the disc, and of course the game is spread across 5 different discs. When you beat a level, the game just uninstalls itself entirely, deletes all your saves, and installs the next disc as if it were a brand new game, which is pretty odd. The backgrounds each took up to 45 minutes to render, and there's over 500 of them. Each of the characters have unique animations. The team built the engine alongside the game, which naturally came with a lot of problems. And again, it's very clear that this just wasn't a smooth development period, which was confirmed by a comment left in June of 2020 on a great piece about the game on the Collection Chamber blogspot, which is a great website that reviews and repackages old games to be played on modern computers, and they even scanned this art book in. A link is in the description. The comment is by Richard Ashdown, who's acknowledged as the creator, writer, and producer on the game, as well as the main writer of the book. And just so I'm doing my due diligence, the comment was written without an account, so it might be an imposter, but I'd be super surprised if it was. I think we were pretty mad to just even try to pull it off, but that was in many ways the point. The band got it and we had enough attitude to give it a go. The game itself suffered because we were inventing and designing the software as we built the game, and we lacked skill and most importantly time. This was the moment the games industry really changed to 3D. In effect, we were building the likes of Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed series on machines that could barely handle the graphics 20 years ago. That's quite ambitious. At the time, there wasn't a rendering system that could manage it. We were real-time streaming both in-game audio and Redbook quality stereo simultaneously as well, for example. The camera switching was 640 by 480 graphics, and there wasn't a physics model built to handle the line of sight and collision detection necessary for the game, as I recall. So it was really pushing the edge and ultimately went over the curve. The motion capture, so easy now, came from a medical research company based in Dijon. It was a mammoth task, and in fairness, a tribute to the team, their effort and resilience. The game sank without a trace pretty much, and the creative pretty much resurfaced in the musical We Will Rock You. All in, an extraordinary experience with the band, and a game that just couldn't quite get there. Too much to do, never enough time. Queen the Eye was a victim of its own ambition, and it serves as a reminder that most video games, no matter the quality of the final product, are built with blood, sweat, and tears. Even the most hardcore of Queen fans would struggle to enjoy this beyond its soundtrack, but it's hard not to appreciate its bold strokes of creativity, its very 90s idiosyncrasies, and its efforts at pioneering on a technical level. And there we wrap up the video. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Just before I go, I want to thank all my patrons. So thank you, patrons. Thank you, all the patrons coming up on the screen. And thank you especially to my $5 patrons. Alex Austin, Analog Man, Anthony Gallagher, Anthony Valiant, Aradina Varon, Big J, Boggy Online, Bry, Cannondorf, CD-ROM Fossil, Chew Cannon, Cody Dockham, Connor McWelch, Connor Salinas, Dan Pierce, Daniel Gold, Devin Grandal, Dingo Dangle, Dominic Chikoki, Doe Pants, Evil Chicken, Felipe Magales, Gary Pay, Hazardous, Kirby, Ian Lockhart, Jay Gouls, Kane Ramsey, Kayla, Lab Cat, Lucas Ray Sevic, Major 1940, May Aris, Mazaki, Melanie G, Michael Brennan, Mini-Me feels like he's wearing nothing at all, nothing at all, nothing at all, stupid sexy Flanders, Mr. Sunday Movies, Mustache, Duct Tape, Nora Featherstone, Oscar PK Ponky Kong, Patrick Kirst, Petersaurus, Pewix, Plague, Ritalin for Kids, Robbie Grieg, Ruth Knapman, Sam King, Sam Liss, Scott Hazlitt, Skied Panthera, Something Stupid 7, Sour Pears, Spoofer, Tia, Test Drive Unlimited 2, The Dan Marty, The Last Great Opium Den, Titch, Trevor Corbin, Trixie Emerson, Venetian Red, Wastelander 997, Wayner's Boss, Will Mini-Me say the word bum if I write it here, Zindictive, and Yams. Thank you all for subscribing, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.